Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, we're talking about Love Lies Bleeding. Rose Glass's new feature is out. I am so stoked to talk about this one. So stoked. This movie is so much cooler than it looks on its face. Stick around for the review. We're going to talk about some trailers that are coming out soon, namely that new Furiosa trailer. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. I don't mean to just be like a podcast movie fanboy. The Heat. Dude, that movie looks so good. We're going to talk about Dream Scenario. It's right, an A24 double feature on this episode 246 of Off Script. The new Nick Cage feature from 2023. We finally got around to checking it out now that it's on Max, where you can watch it as well. Stick around for that review at the end of the show. Before we get to everything, we got to talk about the news. Our first story this week, Andy, Neve Campbell's back for Scream 7. God, I wanted to say that headline without laughing, and I couldn't even get through it. Yes, after exiting the franchise over salary controversy, Neve Campbell is happy to return as Sidney Prescott to the Scream franchise. Andy, for those who are out of the know, may not be wise to what's going on, what's this about?
So a lot has happened in the Scream franchise in the last 6 months. Original stars Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega. Ortega essentially walked away from the franchise, and it was definitely going strong. The last two movies, 5 and 6, made a ton of money. Neve Campbell famously did not return for 6 over salary disputes, but she's back with this gaudy post on Instagram that has a big cover sheet of a script with superimposed Neve Campbell giant on the front, just so everyone knows.
Oh my God.
And it's just called Scream 7. We don't have any details. We just know that she's back after these salary negotiations fell through on the last film. It's probably cheaper now since they've lost half the cast, including the stars. Maybe that freed up some of the budget. Kevin Williamson is back. He was the director and creator of the original Scream. He also wrote Scream 4. And he's back with this 7th installment. We don't know anything about it, but it's hilarious that this is going again. Maybe Chad, who survived the last 2 films, will return yet again. He seems to be unkillable.
Yes. I think Chad will be the killer in Scream 7, but who knows? There will be at least 19 people on the poster if it's anything like the previous Scream series. Listen, I want to make one thing clear. I am pro Neve Campbell. Good for Neve Campbell getting the bag. She was disrespected, straight up disrespected on Scream 6. Pushed out. They gave her a bad offer. The worst option possible for the main character of a horror franchise. And now she's getting it. And good for her. No problems with Neve Campbell. She posted about this on Instagram. Tons of exclamation points. She said, I've dreamt for many years of how amazing it would be to make one of these movies with Kevin Williamson doing it. Kevin Williamson's doing Scream 7. I can't wait. That rocks. All that being said, dude, I'm so over Spyglass trying to clumsily handle these features and just fumbling again and again. They out Melissa Barrera because of her post about Israel. Jenna Ortega swiftly leaves after, probably because she's asking for, I would say well over $1 million for this feature. And they're absolutely, we're not going to pay that. We wouldn't even pay our previous female lead that money, right? We're not going to pay you that. So she bails. Now Neve Campbell's sliding back in. They got to go for the reboot again or something. Bail on Neve Campbell. Make this the last one, I think, and just try to go in an entirely new, fresh direction. Is that crazy? Is that the worst idea ever? Or are they just bound to what came before? Will Scream always be a reiteration of the previous Scream?
I mean, it's hard to say. These legacy properties, they want to have it both ways. I say this all the time. They want to have new blood to carry the franchise. That's what we got in Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega. But then they want the notoriety, the renown of the legacy characters such as Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, and the late David, not Schwimmer,
Arquette.
David Arquette. Thank you, who met his demise in Scream 5. This is a problem with all these properties. We see it in Star Wars, The Matrix, Ghostbusters. They're trying to have the best of both worlds, and you kind of just got to push forward with new characters, or you got to backseat these legacy characters, which they never really want to do. So who knows? Scream is always pretty successful. I'll probably see it just out of curiosity. It'll get me. It always does.
Yeah, I feel the same way about Neve Campbell being in this feature as I did as a lot of the old legacy characters in Jurassic World 3, right? Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum. Go rock the red carpet, man. Take a bite of the apple. Big smiles for the photos. You're getting the money. You earned it. Good for you guys. For the studio, Boy, you guys have got to figure out something better than nostalgia properties. That being said, our next story regarding a couple of comic book film release dates. Matt Reeves' The Batman 2 gets pushed a year. Ouch! Gets pushed from October 2025 to October 2026, which is a real bummer. Meanwhile, Sony is moving things up, right? They can't wait to get Venom 3 in theaters as it bumps up to October. Andy, what do you think? I'm at a loss.
Well, we knew that these strikes, the labor strikes from last year, would have an impact on TV and film, and this is part of that. It's getting moved a whole year, from 2025 to 2026. It's a long time, but also it's a strategic move because the James Gunn's Superman movie comes out in summer of 2025, and they probably want to put some space. You don't want to put Superman and then Batman like 2 or 3 months later. You really want to space out your heavy. So that's part of the thinking, is just have room for these big characters to breathe and kind of have their own space. Venom is, I guess that's this year, 2024, October, coming out. It's, those movies make a lot of money. They're not very good. Venom movies, huge hits. And it's been titled Venom: The Last Dance, which is a great title.
Yeah, hopefully it will be truly the last one, but I who knows, right? I think it is genuinely funny, like how Sony just keeps putting out the clearly like the lowest of the low of these comic book features, like if not at the box office, certainly creatively, right? Like they are just barely scraping by with something that's acceptable for Disney Marvel, right? Like Madam Web clearly was not a banger. Morbius was rough, and they even put that back in theaters because they thought they could meme their way to a W. Kraven the Hunter's coming, and I don't think anybody's excited about that movie. And Venom 3, listen, I've written off the past 2 Venom features in the past. Andy's right. They kill overseas. It's going to make a lot of money. But good Lord, Marvel's putting out like 1 comic book feature this year, Deadpool. Sony's got 3, right? And even DC is still figuring out what they're doing with Superman Legacy. James Gunn's trying to jockey things around. Like, in the wake of comic book films trying desperately to get on their front feet and put out something that audiences want, there's Sony just like cranking out the trash machine as fast as they can, right? Just feed general audiences the worst thing ever.
Get that garbage out.
Just get it in theaters quick before they don't care anymore. Like, I don't know. I don't have much of a counter to that, but that's what I think is going on. Andy, what do you think? Am I wrong?
I mean, we knew that dates would shift and change with the labor strikes. It's but one's man trash. One date that's trash is another date that's treasure. When a studio or movie vacates a date, that just opens up for other studios to see what projects might slide in and fit into those as well. It changes the whole landscape. Venom has come out in I want to say October, fall before, and been really successful. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Another story this week from the box office. Winnie-the-Pooh Blood and Honey is getting a in-universe low-budget horror crossover tie-in film. 6 years after Avengers Infinity War, the studio announced the Pooniverse, Monsters Assemble for 2025 with a clumsy AI poster. Andy, I think the thing that makes me the most upset about this is just how tilted I get just reading about it. Because we saw Winnie-the-Pooh Blood and Honey, and it is laughably, jokingly bad. Like, it is insanely bad, honestly. What do you think?
So for a long time, the cinematic universe is what every studio was trying to do. After the success of Marvel, Disney tried it with Star Wars. They tried the MonsterVerse. Like the Fast and Furious is a successful cinematic universe, and so that was the hot thing. And now, while that's died down, the Pooniverse is back with this horror crossover that. There's 2 parts of this that are unbelievable. So first of all, this is going to be the culmination of a 5-film sequence of movies, including Bambi, The Reckoning, Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare, and Pinocchio Unstrung, as well as Blood and Honey 1 and 2. So you get 5 of these really low budget, kind of twisted fairy tales, and then we'll get like the team up film, the Avengers of this terrible public domain. Maybe we should bring back copyright now just to keep these out. But like, I mean, this is really calling your shot because like that first movie is real bad, but it made a ton of money compared to its budget. They got to make 4 more of those, and they got to be successful before they ever get to this like Pooniverse mess. And maybe that's just part of the gag is that like, well, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It's news now, and it's we'll see.
Yeah. Characters that will be included in this tie-in include Winnie-the-Pooh, Bambi, Tinkerbell, Pinocchio, Peter Pan, Tigger, Piglet, the Mad Hatter, and Sleeping Beauty. I'm Dude, I think I'm pro Disney on this one. Like, is there not enough here that your seedy lawyers at the House of Mouse can't put together a case and just sue them to oblivion? Do I really have to read about this? Do I have to see this on my timeline? I swear to God, Andy, I almost went and blocked, like muted Winnie-the-Pooh, like each individual word, including that's how sick I am of seeing this. Like, I'm so over it. That first film is so laughingly bad. Like, not so bad it's good cinema, just bad. Like, and it never should have made it to theaters. And the only reason it did is because of the name. Like, and the only reason any of this is making any headlines at all is because of the property. And it's like, I can't, there's no creative value here. Nothing good is happening. It's just people making money. If they could make these movies with AI, they would. It would be faster and cheaper and easier. Like, it's nuts. You know, not great for cinema. I do admittedly get a chuckle out of Pinocchio unstrung though. That is funny. Any other thoughts on this one, Andy, before we go to the box office for a couple of numbers?
Like I said, it's amazing that someone's calling their shot this far out. Only one of these 5 movies has even come out, so we'll see. And I think the second one is actually coming out soon, but I think you're going to have diminishing returns, and by the time, and this has happened with lots of properties, by the time you get to your team up film, it's too late.
Yeah, teenagers walked out of our showing of Winnie-the-Pooh, Blood and Honey. Teenagers, like the people who are supposed to recommend this to their right. Like, it's. How are you going to make 4 more of these and then make a tie-in and continue to turn profit? I don't know if you are. I think you just, you know what? It's fine. Not going to worry about Jagged Edge Productions. Could be the new Asylum for all I know. Maybe they'll stick around for a long, long time. Something I'm not sure will stick around is DreamWorks' performance with Kung Fu Panda 4. It's doing pretty good, honestly. Dethroned Dune 2 at the box office this week. But I don't know if it's going to have the legs to carry like previous Kung Fu Panda films. Andy, what's going on at the ticket sales office this week?
Kung Fu Panda 4 opened to in its second weekend, brought in an additional $30 million for a total global mark of $100 million. So really good for a DreamWorks picture. And Dune, which leapt ahead of Dune 2, which is now, I think just today crossed over the 500 million mark. So it's going, I think it's going to probably putter out around like 700 million. Dune 2 that is. But they're both going to face a lot of competition this week as Ghostbusters Frozen Empire and the new Godzilla film also comes out in a couple of weeks. And so the box office is getting a little crowded.
So a couple quick thoughts on that. Definitely not sure if Kung Fu Panda is going to stick around or not. It's got great numbers at the box office, but I just hear this new one's not that good. I don't know where they go next. The animation style is a little flat. But obviously, DreamWorks has a formula that works. There will probably be a Kung Fu Panda 5, right? Why not keep them coming? Regarding Ghostbusters, we were talking about this earlier. Who's going to see that movie besides maybe us? I'm not even sure if I want to go see it. Like, I don't know anybody who's interested.
There's 2 other things I want to see besides that, for sure.
in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And then I just saw a trailer the other day for Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. Andy, do you know off the top of your head? We do a movie podcast. I don't know anybody that's in that movie. Do you? I couldn't name a single cast member other than Godzilla and Kong. I have no clue. I don't know what the plot is. I don't know who's in it. I don't know anything about that movie.
All I know is that it's part of the MonsterVerse, started in like 2014, 2015. Rebecca Hall has been the person in every one of these. It's somehow for a franchise. It's funny because she's been in like the other 3-4 films, and when she shows up in this, people think she's like new. They're like, why is she in this? She's such a better actress, and it's like, no, she's like the lead in all 4 of these monster movies.
Yeah, again, I wasn't even sure. Obviously, the show is Godzilla and Kong. I totally get that. And hey, the last one was a good time. What's worth? I did like that Godzilla X Kong. It was fun. So maybe this new one will be something good. Meanwhile, one more. Arthur the King is out, which I think is a big contender for worst title of 2024. Like, it doesn't tell you anything. It's forgettable. It's a dog movie. It's the dog movie of the year, right? Like, every year there's a couple of good dog movies come out. This one features Mark Wahlberg. It's based on a true story about a team of adventurers who race across the world and a dog that keeps up with them. I think that's it. Simu Liu and Bear Grylls are also in it. Any interest in covering this one for the show, Andy? I'm a big pass on this. I think not for me.
Hard pass. Hey, I can't
Yeah.
be supporting Mark Wahlberg, and I don't really like animal films.
Hey, if he'd been there that day, it wouldn't have gone down like it did. All right, like
It wouldn't have gone down.
It would. Dude,
For those not in the know, Mark Wahlberg alleges that he could have stopped 9/11.
if he had been
on the
there,
plane.
it wouldn't. If my kids had been on that plane, wouldn't have gone down the way that it did. He would have brought that Boston justice. Among other things, Mark Wahlberg has alleged. It's not looking great for Mark Wahlberg. But hey, I don't know. It's a dog movie. I'm sure he'll get more work. And that's what's going on at the box office. We got to move on to the reviews. It's time. Too much news this week. Too many good things to cover. We'll keep the trailer park tight though in the middle of it. With that being said, Andy's going to be taking the summary on this one. Very excited to talk about this feature. Andy, please take it away.
Love Lies Bleeding. Sorry, blanked out our title for
all right.
a quick second. Love Lies Bleeding, directed by writer-director Rose Glass, who previously did Saint Maud, which was a small horror film, which we did review on this show. Nice first film, very scary, very kind of disturbing, good piece of horror. She's here with her sophomore follow-up, which stars Kristen Stewart as Lou. This takes place in the late 80s. Lou runs this or helps run this trashy gym in 1989. It's gross, it's dingy, it's dirty. That they're in New Mexico. She's kind of works in a criminal family. She herself is not so much a criminal, but her father, played by Ed Harris, is. He's like kind of a local mafia guy, crime lord, has his hands in lots of different legal and illegal enterprises. She tries to stay out of his business as best she can. One day she meets Katy O'Brien's character, Jackie, who comes into the gym. They immediately hit it off, start a friendship, start a romance between them. Katy O'Brien, who plays Jackie, is huge. She's like this jacked bodybuilder, and they just hit it off. They have a romance, but they live in this seedy kind of world of violence, of love, of addiction. And I don't want to get too much into plot, but I want to get into vibes. Things do not go well because of the settings they're in. Eventually, there's things like murders and the cover up of murders, violence, lots of that kind of thing going on. This is a really incredible film that really blew me away. I was excited to see it, and it really caught me by surprise. Lots to talk about, but Zach, what are your thoughts?
I think Love Lies Bleeding is a really incredible sophomore feature from Rose Glass. Like, it is hard enough to make a good movie once. Like, it is even harder to make a good movie twice and do something really different. This is something we talked about with Kyle Edward Ball coming out of Skinamarink, right? Wildly unique feature. I have no idea what he makes next to follow that up, because you can't just keep doing the same thing. You got to show studios that you can do more with a bigger budget. Love Lies Bleeding is exactly that. It is a unique setting. It is somewhere Rose Glass has never been, right? Originally, I heard this movie was supposed to take place in Scotland, and somehow she fell in love with the 80s bodybuilder scene in America, and that's where this takes place. Like, it is something she hasn't done before. It's a unique thriller with horror elements. And most importantly, like, it's just a really fun time at the movies. Lots of wincing in your seat. Lots of like, oh God, like lean it away from the screen. It's stuff that's going on. Kristen Stewart's tremendous. I'm really excited to talk about it. Where do you want to get started?
Man, gosh. So let's start a little bit with our plot. So Jackie comes to town. Jackie's the bodybuilder person, and she's someone she's hitchhiked here, and she is totally into bodybuilding. Then there's this bodybuilding competition in Vegas she wants to get to, but she just needs work, and she kind of finds her way into the graces of Ed Harris. There's Ed Harris's character, and asks him for a job, and she gets in with this kind of seedy family. but a lot of what happens in this movie, there's lots of relationships, and one of the fascinating kind of topics is this. It's not domestic violence, but it's about the relationship between love and violence. Like we see, and we see this a lot, like sex and violence kind of always tied. It's very stereotypical, but it's very different because it's very much about relationships and violence within those relationships, both like person to person, father to son, husband to wife, wife to husband. Like it's taking on a very complex and nuanced look at something like domestic violence. I'm getting way off the rails.
No, you're
but
right.
It's part of what it's part of what's really fascinating to me about this.
Yeah, I think like the performances are managed to hold up a lot of like that nuance, along with like quality subtext. Right? We find out that Ed Harris is running some illegal operations without anybody telling us that he's running illegal operations. Like it's just made very obvious through clear visuals and intention of characters, how they move about and how they speak to each other. Him talking to a cop in a way that's like he's telling him what to do, like lets us know that, hey, Ed Harris is the man who's running things around town, whether you like it or not. Right? Meanwhile, Kristen Stewart has to play a wildly unique performance, coming hot off the heels of her Oscar-nominated performance in Spencer as Princess Diana. She is like this greasy, downtrodden, bad haircut lesbian working at a gym. Well, nothing is going right for her, right? She's got to like wipe down machines that are gross and clean toilets. And then Katy O'Brien walks in, right? Jackie, like this gorgeous bodybuilder, just seemingly out of the desert, who is perfect for this role. She's perfect for it. I read that she had interviewed or auditioned like 6 times for this, which is unbelievable to me. I don't know how you could have picked anybody else to be Jackie. Like she's so fantastic. She plays this like big burly woman who's bent on going to this competition and is so looking forward to it. And she falls in love with Kristen Stewart's Lou, and the two of them have this great relationship for like 4 weeks before she heads to Vegas. And it's this kind of summer fling kind of thing that starts to take a real turn when circumstances don't come about the way one would expect. And suddenly, like, Jackie has to deal with all of this emotional energy that she's been keeping up inside, building up to this competition. And she turns into this character who's really, really unique. Like somebody I haven't seen in a feature before, you know, like a kind of character who I didn't expect. Meanwhile, Kristen Stewart's Lou is like just struggling to keep up with the energy and keep things together as it spins out of control. Like Ed Harris has crazy hair extensions, and I did give him a hard time because he's getting up there, and I was like, he's probably going to be sitting down in every scene. And not only is he not, but like he's still great, dude. Ed Harris still holds it down. Dave Franco's a lot of fun. Didn't even know he was in this movie. Cast is outstanding, like stellar direction all around.
Right. One of the the performances are spot on. Cast is so good. One of the interesting side plots is that Ed Harris's daughter is married to Dave Franco's character, who clearly abuses her. They go to dinner where she has a black eye and a split lip, and you know, and she loves her man, and this isn't about a judgmental thing, but you could tell that the people around this relationship want to do something about it and eventually do, but that all goes way more wrong in an effort to try to do the right thing. I think part of what I love about this world is that it's so grimy, and it's told so well in the visuals. Lou is addicted to cigarettes. Jack is addicted to steroids. Like addiction's a big theme, but it's just like the grime and the sound. That there's a scene where she's throwing eggs into the trash can, and you see it go in, and it's like there's cigarettes and coffee grounds and God knows what else mixed in with like egg yolks, and just the squelching and sounds in this movie are it's so moving. It was a really important part of that. But again, it's essentially a movie about relationships and how it's so easy for violence to creep into relationships, even between Lou and Jackie, our heroines, and they're not immune for it. And there's also this idea of using love and sex to manipulate people, and also manipulating people into getting love and sex. It's just a fascinating just way of looking at relationships and violence together.
Yeah. Lou and Jackie's relationship is like this really bright, like glimmer of hope in a world that is horrifically cynical. Like Andy said, like it is gross montages and squelching sounds. The film opens with this really great montage of people working out at the gym, and it's like sweat. It's like a close up on a nipple and like a guy's armpit while he's working. And then later you got like Jackie shooting steroids, and it's like needle going into a toe, and you're like, Jesus God,
Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah,
style.
like, oh God. And like that's something Rose Glass has got dialed in so good. She uses it in Saint Maud for horror, right? For intention. One of my favorite shots from Saint Maud, I remember from the trailer, I still think about it from time to time, is when Maud, in an act of self-punishment, puts like thumbtacks in her shoe on the inside facing up and then puts them on. And the shot of her putting the shoe on and stepping into it and putting her weight, brutal. But all you're seeing on camera is somebody putting a shoe on. But like the presentation and dedication to like weaving a narrative is so great that you lean back in your seat. Like you feel visibly uncomfortable. And like, I can't believe she manages to bring that to this feature even more so than in the previous one. Like stellar. I can't believe how good Rose Glass is at making me feel uncomfortable. And again, in a setting that's entirely unique from her previous feature. This is not a religious horror film. There are really cool horror elements intertwined throughout. It reminded me a lot of how David Lowery uses horror in The Green Knight. It's not a horror film by nature, but there's plenty of elements of horror that I think are used to enhance the kind of the thrilling nature of the story here. Really tremendous. Really tremendous. And also, can I say, a tidy runtime as well. Not too long, not too short, an hour 44. Oh boy. Rose Glass is just turning out banger after banger here.
Yeah, this definitely uses a lot of horror elements. There's a couple of jump scares, but there's quite a bit of body horror that happens in here. Like we're talking about, there's very brief scene, or there's a lot of scenes of Katy using, of Jackie using steroids. And yeah, it's just, she starts to use them just a little bit at the beginning, and then she's just full on addicted, where like, again, she's shooting up a lot between her toes are all bruised, and it's like those little visceral things where you're like, oh, it just makes you so uncomfortable. And just Rose Glass is so good at this. And again, you mix that in with some jump scares, some body horror, lots of violence. And I think one of the things I really loved about this film is the pacing, because we have a normal first act, lots of setup, and then it just steps on the gas for the last two acts 2 and 3. It's just gas the whole time. I was so locked in the entire time, like was not bored for 1 second. Really surprising, because I wasn't real sure what to expect from another Rose Glass second feature, but man, I was in it the whole time.
We don't do spoilers here on Off Script, but I do want to say that I think one of the things that if you talk to somebody who's seen this film, if they're not so warm on it, it might be worth inquiring about kind of the atypical nature of the ending of this feature. It's bold. It's unique. This is the kind of cinema Andy and I like here on Off Script. So I was into it. I'm sure there will be people out there who are into like most of this movie and then they get really perplexed by where things end up. But I think that makes it all the more exciting to recommend to people. Like it's unique and different and original. And I think Love Lies Bleeding is doing some really cool things. And while it may not be a big deal in mainstream cinema, it's gotten quite a release. And a lot like how I felt about coming out of like Lisa Frankenstein, like feels like it's got some cult roots. It really does. Like this feels like a really cool feature. I'm looking forward to seeing what Glass does next. Any other thoughts, Andy, for recommendations?
No, I think I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend Love Lies Bleeding?
Absolutely. Some of the boldest cinema of the year so far. I know we're only 2.5 months in there, but really surprised by this. Was with it the whole time. It's grimy, it's dirty, it's taking a very complex look at the nature of relationships and violence and sex and love and all those things all combined. It's not neat, it's not messy. I mean, it's very messy. It's a lot of times this topic is very black and white, and it's very much in a gray area in this movie. Very thrilling, lots of good action. I can't wait to see what Rose Glass does next.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I would totally recommend Love Lies Bleeding. I think it's super fun. This is one of those movies that, like, every once in a while I'll be at like get together or something with some friends I haven't seen in a while, and somebody will be like, "Hey, what's a good movie you've seen lately?" Or something offbeat. Somebody who maybe goes and sees a couple features, and they're like, "What's something you saw that you'd recommend that you think not a lot of people would be into?" It'll probably be this. I'm gonna be like, "Oh, dude, Love Lies Bleeding was like weird and cool, and I loved it. Stewart's great. Katy O'Brien's great. Like, I had a lot of fun with this movie." It's odd in the best way. Yeah, the best kind of bold cinema. Would recommend. Please go see Love Lies Bleeding in a theater. See it on a big screen too. Loudspeakers. I really, really want you to lean back from like the gross stuff. It makes this stuff that's meaningful like all that much more so. And with that, we should move on to our next segment. A tight trailer park this week. All right, just a couple to talk about, but still worth mentioning. I'm going to take the first one, Andy. I did a little research on the back end here, so I've at least got a summary. But do you mind introducing our segment?
It's time for the trailer park.
Perfect. So our first trailer is The Crow. Not the Brandon Lee Crow. I know you might be thinking. No, if you've kept up with movie news at all, you have inevitably seen this trailer. This features Bill Skarsgård. Bill Skarsgård, right? Yes. He's the correct Skarsgård. Eric Skarsgård?
Yes, Bill Skarsgård.
Yes, it, right? Yes, Pennywise, that one, that guy, the guy that was in Barbarian, that Skarsgård, the one with the big eye. They all got big eyes. He plays Eric Draven, a soulmate, I guess, to Shelley Webster, played by FKA Twigs, who are both brutally murdered when the demons of FKA Twigs' dark past catch up with her. But given the chance to come back and right the wrongs and maybe save the soul of his fair maiden, Eric returns to the living world with a new set of superpowers, almost like a god, to take on the dark organization that has wronged them and make things right. I hear this is based on the graphic novel that the original film was based on and not actually just a hard remake of the original, but it is hard to ignore that it is obviously similar to what was going on in the original film. Andy, have you seen the original Crow? And what do you think about this?
I saw the original Crow. I've seen it a couple times, but not in decades. I don't think. It's a classic kind of tragic Hollywood story. It starred originally Brandon Lee, son of Bruce Lee, who was infamously killed on set through a gun that misfired. Similar to unlike the Rust situation with Alec Baldwin. That movie is very much they're kind of conjuring up those similar things. It was very dark, very gothic. I don't remember if it was a hit or not. That movie's like 30 years old or so that version came out. So a pretty long time ago. I know Alex Proyas, the director of the original, not too happy about this new remake. But oh well. I think this looks okay. It looks a little bit too much like John Wick, and he looks a little bit too much like Suicide Squad Joker, Jared Leto's Joker. So it's not really hitting the vibe for me, but I'll probably still watch it.
It looks a lot like how I imagine Skarsgård's other action feature, Boy Kills World, will probably perform. Like, looks fine. It looks like it'll do all right. Yeah, like he'll do fine on it. Like, hopefully he can get some good studio deals out of it. He's certainly ripped. I mean, he's covered in tattoos. Like, he looks great in it. And also, listen, as I get older, I'm finding I'm becoming more of a pearl clutcher about this, but it's not like America's moving in a better direction with it. Like, this trailer is wildly violent. They blow a guy's head off with a shotgun in like the first 30 seconds. It's insane. Just in the trailer, I was like, God, kids watch this, man. Like, come on. Like, it's fine. They can just do anything nowadays. It's nuts. So the Crow trailer, it's a good time if that's what you're looking for. I'm sure the movie will be similar. Andy, what is the other movie we need to talk about?
But 2 or 3 hours ago, the second trailer for Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, dropped. I just about lost my mind. This trailer looks so good. We see a young Furiosa kind of kidnapped from the green place, which was only kind of talked about in the first Fury Road movie. She's kidnapped and then somewhat almost rescued by her mother, who we see as a badass, but ultimately it looks like her mother doesn't make it. She's kidnapped and taken away, and she fights and struggles to get revenge for those injustices and also go back to try and make her way back to the green place. We see more of Chris Hemsworth, Dementus, who's going to be the main villain. And then we also see our highlights of some of the people we've met in Fury Road, including Morton Joe, the Bullet Farmer, these guys. And way more action. We're seeing there's more cars, more explosions, more gunfights. It just looks awesome, and it has this amazing cover of Man Who Stole the World, done for the trailer, which is a trailer trend to do now. You take a classic song and kind of remix it for a trailer.
Yes. The first time I really noticed that was Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania with Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, the Elton John track. I was like, this doesn't fit at all. And now I can't unhear it from any modern pop trailer. Like, all of them will have some goofy classic rock adaptation. But this one works in spades. The new Furiosa trailer looks awesome. Normally, I see a second trailer, I think I've seen too much of the movie. No. But like this one, no, I feel good about. I still really want to go see it. It looks like a great time. I don't know. What was I going to say? You know what? I'll tell you what I was going to say. The technicals. That's what I'm confused by. The technicals in this movie. A, it's shot on film, which is weird because the previous film shot on digital, and a ton of this looks digital. And B, they didn't shoot as much of it in the desert. I get it. Fury Road was a nightmare to shoot. There's a whole book about it, right? Like Blood and Chrome or whatever it's called. Like, I understand. But also, like, shooting this on film and then getting so much of it to go into a digital world and make it work is perplexing. And between that and some accusations of desaturation in this trailer, I hope my man Miller is still at the helm. I hope he's still getting his say in everything, and Warner Brothers isn't sticking their big grimy hands in this, because that would be the worst thing to come out of this feature. Otherwise, it looks like a lot of fun. Any hot takes on Furiosa before we move on?
It's going to be fun to think of Anya Taylor-Joy action star, because that's what she's going to be after this. Like, she's going to take up that man. It's like a female Tom Cruise. Like, you got the acting chops. Now you're going to be a go-to action star. I'm looking forward to seeing Chris Hemsworth in action. He's doing kind of a funny Australian accent, or kind of interesting Australian accent. I'll say it's not bad, but it's definitely not his voice. He's doing a thing. He might be cooking. We'll see.
Yeah, time will tell. One more film to talk about this week on the podcast. Another A24 feature from last year. And I should say Nick Cage's very first A24 feature. I actually know a bit of trivia about this one, so I'm excited to get into it. The movie is, I'm taking the summary on this, so please excuse my clumsy delivery. The movie is Dream Scenario. So, Dream Scenario is the kind of second or third biggest film from Norwegian director Kristoffer Borgli. He did Sick of Myself in 2022. I didn't see that. I haven't seen any of his previous work, but I know Dream Scenario was produced by our man Ari Aster. It's been compared a lot to Beau is Afraid, also adaptation, the Charlie Kaufman film. So I'm excited to get into it. Movie stars Nicolas Cage as Paul Matthews, a hapless family man who finds his life turned upside down when millions of strangers suddenly start seeing him in their dreams. Of course, Paul, who hasn't really accomplished anything large in his life and who feels his peers are starting to surpass him in writing their books and projects as university professors, suddenly he takes the attention and loves it, but he's perplexed that in all of these dreams, his character never really does anything to help anybody. All of these people are in helpless situations, and he's there, but he doesn't do anything. And as people kind of take a shine to him, he benefits from this, right? He enjoys the new attention. He likes that people are suddenly seeing him as a person. But suddenly, the dreams start to take a turn. And suddenly, Paul does start to act in the dreams, but in the worst way possible. Often comedic, sometimes terrifying, sometimes traumatizing. And suddenly, Paul is on the receiving end of not the love and adoration that people have given him, but the fear and loathing that have come from dreams that he in no way has any control over. It is a dark comedy. It is a unique feature, and an hour, 42 minutes, not too long, not too short, just enough to be interesting, and features a host of guest stars, which I didn't expect, including people like Tim Meadows, Dylan Baker, Scott Pilgrim, which is funny because I have the poster.
Michael Cera.
Michael Cera. You'd think I'd have that ready to go. It's a unique feature. Came out late last year. The movie is Dream Scenario. Andy, what'd you think?
I think there's a lot of good ideas in here. There's a lot of potential. I feel like it kind of loses its way about halfway through, but there's a lot of fun scenes. I am fascinated with Paul's character. He feels so inadequate. He does this lecture at the beginning about the zebra and why does the zebra have stripes? And he says it's to blend in with the herd. And he is very much tired of blending in with the herd. He feels he has not gotten recognition for his work. He talks about he's got a book that he wants to write. But then when he's asked about it, he's like, well, I haven't actually written anything yet. He craves recognition from his peers. one of the professors at the university has like these famous house parties that he's dying to get invited to, and never does up until he's kind of a little bit more famous. So he craves this renown and attention, and he finally gets it. And instead of kind of thinking his way through this, he just dives right in. He's like, "Oh no, I'm going to get recognition. I'm going to sign with this agency," and it's one of those. It's a little bit of one of the like a family holiday movie would be like, this person really wants this, and they really had the treasure all along in their family. So it starts to go down that trope, but it kind of goes in a direction you don't really think. But the only thing is his character is so unlikable, because he's really like he is this insecure person, but he's also just, man, he's a jerk. He really is. Like, you're not going to get anyone's sympathy.
So let's talk about Nick Cage. We got to talk about Nick Cage. So Nick Cage originally was not going to do this movie. And then he was approached by Ari Aster, who produced the film. Ari Aster went directly to him and said, I think you should do this film. There's something really cool here. Nick Cage had considered retiring after this feature. He looked at this as kind of a trilogy alongside, hear me out, Pig in 2021 and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent in 2023. This, along with those two films, is three kind of meta features about the idea of being a star, the idea of being functionally famous, and how other people perceive you through parasocial relationships, right? His character, the chef in Pig, is world-renowned. Everybody knows him. Everybody loves him, and he just wants to get away from it. His character in Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent is himself, right? Nicolas Cage, like an actor who everybody knows. He's not connected to any of these people. He just wants to be an artist and do his own thing. And Paul Matthews in Dream Scenario is very similar in this idea, but he's kind of the opposite side of it, right? Like, Paul Matthews is somebody who has not accomplished a lot, but would love the opportunity. And I saw a Reddit comment in the reviews for this thread. Chris Rock has a joke. Chris Rock says, a man's only as honest as his options, right? And Paul Matthews fits this to a T, because Paul Matthews is a pretty good dude right up until he starts to get the absurd amount of acclaim and benefit that comes from something that he in no way has control over. And then things start to turn. Then he starts to be like, you know what, I want this my way. And I think you're stealing my work for your project. And yeah, you know what, I would never cheat on my wife, but that woman over there at that bar is pretty attractive. Maybe I'll go chat with her. And a lot of that produces, I think, really interesting scenarios for Cage to just crush it on screen. Like, he is wildly unlikable. Paul Matthews is not a likable dude to me at all. I couldn't stand him, down to the haircut, which apparently Cage picked himself. But like, on the other end of that, you end up with a film that starts to feel long, and a character who you don't really spend a lot of time understanding because everybody's so damn scared of him. He is awkward in the best way. He's shameful, and he's afraid to talk to people. And but God, like, my social anxiety comes out of when I see Cage doing this character, so I can totally relate to that level of it. But man, like, he's just not a fun protagonist to watch. Like, he was a real slog for me.
Yeah, usually a character like this would be, maybe a little bit more like I think Mr. Hunneman in The Holdovers, Paul Giamatti's character, who isn't. He's rough on you, but he's likable because he's still a good guy. Like, he means well. He's just a little rough around the edges. Whereas, like, Cage doesn't really mean well. He's like, I've been robbed. I'm entitled to all this. Like, he's got this big house. He's two beautiful daughters. This lovely wife played by Julianne Nicholson. Like, he's got it all, but he just isn't happy with it. He wants the fame. He wants the renown. This is also, it's a fascinating premise, but it's one of those things, great premise, but you don't really know how to wrap it up. And I feel like that kind of happens to this movie. It's an interesting thing to say, yeah, people are dreaming about you, but like, the rules for why this is happening or how it's kind of changing are never made clear. And there's never a real good way to kind of wrap this up. I've heard this compared to a Black Mirror episode, or would be better as like a half-hour Black Mirror episode. And that might be true. It is trying to take on some issues about like cancel culture and, like you said, parasocial relationships, and just what happens when you're internet famous but not really famous. Those sorts of kind of more modern, complex questions.
Yeah, like it tries to kind of walk into this area of like what it's like to achieve fame without having any control over what people say and do and think about you, right? Like Chris Stuckman compared it to like gossip tabloids you see at like grocery store checkouts, right? With like celebrities' faces on them and goofy headlines that they in no way have contributed to or care about, and suddenly there are a lot of people at the grocery store who are like, "Oh, I can't believe Tom Cruise did this. That's terrible," right? Like there's no way Tom Cruise deserves that hate. He doesn't do anything. And like, I kind of get that. And the cancel culture stuff is funny. I got a big laugh out of that line. After things start to turn for him, Paul goes to his publicist like, "What can I do? How can I get my message out or say something?" And they're like, "Well, we can get you on Rogan and Tucker Carlson." Like that was that's funny. You go on to do the cancel culture tour, like that's a good time. But it does end up long. I've one of the most common things I heard from anybody talking about this movie was the ending is odd and does not really stick the landing. In the total opposite way, Love Lies Bleeding does. I think the ending is odd, but totally works. This one, it didn't really get there for me. It was a little weird. And I agree. Like, I think the formula works a little better as something like a Black Mirror episode. Now, that being said, I do think there are some really cool ideas in here. I think there's some really cool ideas. There's one particular scene that I think a lot of people have talked about, right kind of in the middle of this film, a romance scene that is so uniquely awkward and strange that like I can't help but like it. Like by itself in a bottle, that scene is rad, dude. And there's a few of these. Like there's a couple of really great effects. I love when Paul has to put on a Freddy Krueger glove and like sweater for a photo shoot. They're like, "Well, yeah, you're in dreams. It's cool, right?" Like, and Michael Cera's like Thoughts Company is really funny that like handles his stuff. Like all of that works good. It just didn't hold my interest. I guess like Glenn Howerton's character Dennis in Always Sunny has that line about dreams. He's like, "It's like somebody telling you to dream." At some point, I just don't care. At some point, I'm just disinterested because it's like so broken from reality that I just can't really stick with it long enough to get me over the finish line where I think the film is headed. But I do think it's a unique script and I think it's a unique project. It's just, I don't know, didn't quite get all the way there for me.
Yeah, it needed a few more drafts. The premise is really interesting. Like it starts very strong, but it needed some more editing and revisions about how are we going to take our character and story and how are we going to kind of resolve his issues, because I feel like Paul doesn't get better. Like usually when you have a character like this, he improves by the end of the film, like Mr. Hunnam and The Holdovers. In this, he just gets worse. He seems to be a worse person at the end than he is at the beginning, but he has kind of gotten some of the things that he thought he wanted out of life.
Yeah. Like not bad overall. I did want to ask Andy, where did it land on you in the sense of being a comedy? Because I didn't get that many laughs out of it. I feel like maybe if I'd gone to see it in a theater and not just watched it at home, I would have got more out of it.
There's a couple of really good. There's a very awkward romantic exchange that's the midpoint of the film that I think that I laughed out loud at, and that probably would have killed in a crowd. But I don't think people saw that with the crowd. And the other thing is that this was a holiday release. This was a Thanksgiving release movie. And I was like, why would you take, like, I wouldn't want to take my friends or family to see this over the holidays. Like, oh my God. Yeah. And I mentioned this before the show. It invokes to me the movie Family Man, which also starred Nick Cage, about like a corporate yuppie who learns the value of family and friends. And I thought we were kind of going down that path, and it really does it. And I'm surprised it didn't.
Yeah, like overall, and I like Family Man, by the way. Like overall, like I do think I get why Cage picked the movie. Like watching it, I'm like, I totally see, yes, like why he's into this, and hearing that he kind of paired it with these other two features he took on, like I could see what he's doing here. He's going for it. He's a great job. It's just I don't know. The script didn't quite pull me in the way the trailer does. You know, like the first 2/3 of it, I'm like, all right, this is pretty good, and then it starts to wander. Unique ending for sure. I wish I could say I was warmer on it, but I've heard good things. God, like from people, from usually reviewers I respect, they've all come out and said, yeah, it's a good time. A little odd in the end, but you know, whatever. Overall, like probably a good time. So now I got to ask you, Andy, would you recommend Dream Scenario?
Well, this is just streaming this week, or newly this week on Max, and I would say it's a save it for streaming kind of film. If you didn't run out and go see it at Thanksgiving, and you're interested in the premise, and you like Nick Cage, and you're in for something that's a little bit different, I would say check it out. But if you're not really interested in it, I would say probably soft pass.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I would love to say this reminds me of like Beau is Afraid, another Astor production. A lot of people have compared it to Adaptation, Charlie Kaufman, Spike Jonze films. Like, and it's definitely odd in that way, but it's not made from those filmmakers. Like, this is somebody who's not new in the space, but is growing and is trying new things and is writing for themselves, Kristoffer Borgli, and that's okay. But you're not going to get the exact same experience. Dream Scenario is good. I don't know if it's great. But yeah, that's Dream Scenario. I'm in the same boat. Watch it on streaming if you can, which is probably where you will because it's on Max. Go check it out there. My God, Andy, episode 246 flies by with the bullet. What are we watching next week?
Next week, March 26th, we'll be back with, we're going to have to pick two of these, but these are the three big releases this week. Immaculate, which is the Sydney Sweeney religious horror film. That's a hot 90 minutes, and Sydney Sweeney's in the moment right now. She's like larger than life, so we're gonna be checking that out. Another horror movie we really want to check out started David Dalmatian, Late Night with the Devil, which we talked about the trailer just a couple weeks ago. That's also out. And then the big studio release is Ghostbusters Frozen franchise, Frozen Empire, which we're which we're not interested in seeing. We'll see. We have to discuss this, but those are the three big releases, so it'll be at least two of those three. And we'll be back. We'll see what that's like.
Yeah, listen, it is hard to believe in the year of our Lord 2024 that I might pass on a Ghostbusters feature. But look, I'm only getting older, and the idea of like schlubby plumbers like chain smoke on their way around New York and busting ghosts is a lot more appealing than me than like the family feature that it's become. I don't know, like I'm just not that warm on Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Maybe it'll be a good time. Maybe it'll have banger reviews. We'll see. If I could swing it, I'd love to check out Late Night with the Devil. I don't know if we can find a screening. We'll look. We've been kind of eyeballing it, see if we can find something. As for Immaculate, I tell you what, this movie's only getting more interesting the more I find out about it. I was not that interested before, but Sweeney's produced it from a script she read for in 2014. I hear it's got a wild ending. I don't know what that means, but hey, that's exciting. And that tight 90s certainly doesn't hurt either. So we'll see what we end up watching for the show. If you enjoyed the show today, if you like what we're doing here on Off Script Film Review, easiest way to keep up with us, just subscribe to the show. Subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform or video platform if you can swing it. We're on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartMedia. You might be listening to us there right now, and we appreciate you listening. You might be watching us on YouTube where we upload our shows, individual reviews. Lots of good things happening on the YouTube channel. So many good things happening on the YouTube channel. I got to get back on top of it because I think I'm backed up. I think I might be behind on the YouTube channel. There's so much going on. So come check us out over there. Throw us a little love. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the usual social media places. You can follow us over there. Our website is offscriptfilmreview.com, and you can email us correspondence directly at mail@offscriptfilmreview.com. A lot of good things happening over there. Andy's been doing interviews around the country about Oscar stuff, and I'm not kidding. It's a real thing. They call him Dr. Draper. It's amazing. You got to go check out the website. There's great things going on over there. Please go check it out. And that's us at Off Script episode 246. Episode 250 coming. Oh boy, we got plans. If only we knew what they were. From all of us at Off Script, the home of bold cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
I almost didn't make the outro. Thanks for watching.